Trails is flight up. Roger.
Hi, and welcome to Scope. The main topic of today's show may disturb some of you because it deals with the FBI establishing a national genetic code for criminals.
Some will call it the beginning of a genetic big brother, but others will welcome this new method of keeping track of sexual offenders as an example.
We'll also show you how valuable artifacts found in sunken ships like the Titanic are preserved.
And my favorite segment deals with 3 physically challenged artists who managed to practice their occupations and lead productive lives. It's really quite inspirational.
So let's move ahead with another wonderful show. Invasion of privacy, or another step in the fight against crime. Regardless, it's an invasive procedure as the FBI begins to catalog the genetic code of certain citizens. It's a DNA archive. The FBI has made a bold move to create a database containing the genetic code of convicted felons in the U.S. who are serving jail sentences. Purportedly, this is a preventive step to forestall the reoccurrence of sexual crimes. Scope visited the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. to talk to Steve Nescoda, program manager of the FBI's genetic lab.
What happens is in a typical crime, say a sexual assault, the perpetrator will leave biological evidence at the crime scene. And that evidence can be examined using DNA technology to develop a DNA profile of the individual who committed the crime. So the idea is to build a database of DNA profiles of known criminals. And then, when that evidence is submitted to the laboratory, you don't need this known sample, right? We just analyze what's in the evidence and we search it against a database of DNA profiles from these convicted offenders. And that's a way we can solve a crime.
All 50 American states have approved laws permitting the collection of DNA data on condemned criminals. In order to establish a national standard, the FBI created an index system called CODIS.
What we do is, the FBI laboratory, is distributes CODIS, the computer software, and the training that goes with it, free of charge, to any crime laboratory in the country doing DNA analysis. And the idea is, if everyone in the country is using CODIS and doing the same type of DNA analysis, that we can solve crimes that, that are in different regions of the country, different areas of a particular state.
How does DNA compare to fingerprints?
Fingerprints are known to be unique, right? Each individual's fingerprints are different from everyone else's in the world. And with DNA, that is not necessarily the case. All our DNA is different, unless we're identical twins. But for forensic purposes, those differences depend on how many places in the DNA you look. So just like when you pass me on the street and can distinguish me from someone else, you look at my hair color, my height, my eye color, the shape of my face. The same is true with DNA analysis. The more places you look, the more distinction you can make between 2 DNA profiles. Now, in this technique, when we look at 6 or 8 places, we can safely say that 1 out of 100 million or 1 billion or 10 billion people would only be expected to have that DNA profile.
It's not uncommon at a scene of a crime to have the fingerprints smudged and unusable. And to prevent your leaving usable DNA at the scene of a crime, it's getting to the point you almost have to wrap yourself up in a plastic bag. They can wear gloves, to prevent leaving fingerprints. But if they're going to assault somebody sexually, it's kind of hard not to come into physical contact with them in some fashion. I mean, it sort of defeats the whole purpose if you wrap yourself up in plastic.
For Walter Rowe, professor of forensic science at George Washington University, obtaining a DNA of prisoners is a laborious task, on top of the serious moral implications.
With the Institute sampling of arrestees, we're looking at a major train wreck. First of all, it's probably going to offend a lot of the public. It's going to be a public relations disaster.
I can't give you an answer on what's right or what's wrong. It's technically feasible, and now the issue is, should we do it? And that's for the citizens of this country to, decide if that's what they want.
I think there are ethical and legal problems that are very serious, and they're practical problems. Now, I just can't see that the state legislatures are going to start funding this kind of effort.
In the state of New York, police have recently gathered a DNA sample of a suspect, removing saliva out of a cup from which he was drinking. This was done without his knowledge.
State and local government, law enforcement officers have to be very, very careful, because if some court decides that's abridgment of someone's civil liberties, they're wide open, because under the Civil Rights Act of 1876, so-called Ku Klux Klan Act, that permits suits for damages against state and local officials.
The FBI will only gather DNA data on convicted felons, not suspects. But even if civil rights aren't violated during DNA collection, the data bank is still a controversial issue.
DNA is absolutely moving toward identity, as we call it. And in the future, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they'll look at so many spots in the DNA that it will be considered just like a fingerprint.
It's not just modern pirates that dream of treasures found at the bottom of the ocean. For archaeologists and historians, simple artifacts like this one can be more valuable than gold coins or jewels. This isn't your usual search of the Titanic. It's an expedition to a shipwreck to find valuables in the deep. The search uncovers these objects, which after many centuries submerged, have changed properties and appearance. It's at this stage that we call upon Dr. Wayne Smith from the Nautical Archaeology program at Texas A&M University. He has developed a new method to preserve organic materials.
And what we're doing is taking, in the case of shipwrecked artifacts or artifacts that have been in the ocean for a long period of time, we're taking the water and replacing it with another substance which we can control inside by using chemistry. And by doing that, we maintain the diagnostic attributes of the artifact.
The technique consists of using resin and silicone oils to conserve the objects. The silicone is an organic composite normally used as an isolating and impermeable agent. According to Dr. Smith, this process, even though somewhat expensive, is very efficient. It can be applied in any normal laboratory without the need for expensive equipment. The silicone doesn't alter the basic characteristics of the object, such as color, configuration, and size. The initial investment eventually pays for itself. We asked Dr. Smith if this technique also applies to large artifacts.
Well, big artifacts are a problem no matter what you do. In the case of a big shipwreck, we wouldn't even dream of using silicone oil. But one of the other technologies that we work with is working with polyethylene glycol. And conservators and a lot of people who are enthusiasts in archaeology know this as PEG, P-E-G.
PEG is a loose polymer, is added to water, and takes the place of silicone to preserve the larger artifacts. In the case of smaller objects,
we can do a shoe such as this in a couple of days. And I think one of the most attractive features of this type of process, you notice I'm handling it with my bare hands. If this was preserved using polyethylene glycol, I don't think I would dare to do that. And the reason being, this shoe would be water absorbing. It would absorb water from the atmosphere in the room, the change in temperature. All of these things would affect it very much.
this method isn't restricted to artifacts. It can also be used for parts of anatomy. The silicone polymer process conserves bones for a long time without destroying them and without toxic complications.
We can take a hide off of an animal, and overnight we can preserve that without using the traditional tanning processes. And it's looking good when we're finished. It's tough, very strong, and ready to use.
Dr. Smith has also utilized the same process to preserve photographs, books, ancient documents, paintings, and even insects. But the steps are laborious.
It costs a bit more to do it with the polymers, but once you're finished, the curation and the long-term well-being is much more stable, and it's much more cost-effective.
Here we are at Cal State, LA's Luckman Theater. It's one of the richest art resources in greater Los Angeles. In our story today, we feature remarkable artists, a musician, we have a painter, and a poet. Now, they're all suffering from some form of disability, and they all have one trait in common, the desire to overcome it. What's the recipe? It's perseverance, talent, and technology.
I'm falling with nauseating speed. Things have happened, have not happened yet. Will I toss and turn under the paws of this she-wolf forever? I want to see a star bloom from the heart of an oak. I want to split palm fronds and blow Shiraka any time. I want my eyes back.
15 years ago, the poet Elizabeth Goldring lost most of her vision due to complications from diabetes.
Sartre went blind in the later years of his life, and he wrote, "I can no longer write because I can't see."
Trying to concentrate from one hour to the next, writing became a chore. The letters became fuzzy, indistinguishable. But all wasn't lost. Elizabeth found a way to partially overcome her handicap, an ophthalmological scanner. This laser machine projects images directly onto the damaged part of Elizabeth's retina.
They projected an image of a turtle onto my eye, and I could see that image. It was the first picture I'd seen for many months, and I asked them to write a word, and they wrote the word sun. I could see that too. And right then and there, I decided that I had to at least try to use this machine as a seeing machine.
Today, Elizabeth is a researcher for the Center of Advanced Visual Studies at MIT. She's using the scanner so that students with eyesight deficiencies can appreciate and enjoy art. She also writes books containing her poems. Her latest creation is a visual poem. Words like book, rain, and open door are projected along with images on the retinas of the students.
When you read a word, you just read across the tops of letters, but when I read a word, I must read up and down and around each letter, and then go back to check to make sure. So it takes a long time.
Actually, she's the only one using the scanner for artistic activities. The machine costs $125,000. It tires your eyes and can't be used continually. But Elizabeth still believes in what it can accomplish, and she is trying to improve it so it can become cheaper and more accessible. In fact, she has very lofty goals for its future.
We could have libraries of visual poetry, visual images for people with low vision over the internet. Poetry is something that makes you go.
Jo Hayden was only 19 in her second year at college when she fell, which caused a lesion between her fifth and sixth vertebrae.
We had a balcony that was very narrow and the rail was running about halfway through the balcony. So my roommate and I ended up taking it off, and about 2 weeks later, I was up there with two of my roommates sunbathing and studying for finals, and I stood up very quickly and got dizzy and fell backwards off the balcony.
Jo retained the movement in her arms, but she lost the use of her hands, and for Jo, who dreamed of becoming a successful painter, the loss couldn't have been more devastating.
After my accident, I thought, well, how ironic this is that I'm an artist and God took my hands away, and I thought, how can I paint again?
2 years after the accident, she started to draw and paint watercolors again, using her mouth to hold the pencil or brush. Not an ideal arrangement.
With watercoloring with my mouth, I would have to, lock both arms and lean forward, because with watercolors you have to have the medium flat or it drips, and put a pencil in my mouth, and it was very uncomfortable. And I could only reach a range of about this far. So I would have to turn the paper around and paint upside down and sideways, and it was very painful.
Joe, who today is a systems analyst and draws electronic postal cartoons, has always been searching for a new technology to simplify her life. And 5 years ago, she found what she was looking for. Neurocontrol, a free hand system. It activates the movement of Joe's hands by using electrical stimuli that stimulate nervous impulses. Electrodes connected to her hand muscles and forearm, and a stimulator very much like a metronome, were implanted in Joe's body.
The implant that I had done 2 years ago has changed my life dramatically. It's given me back a lot more independence.
A metallic wire transmits impulses to a computer located in Joe's backpack.
By moving it, my shoulder up and down, it opens and closes my hand, and then if I move it quickly, it locks. So I can hold a paintbrush or hold a fork or hold it without losing it. And it's built in so you have quite a bit of movement where it won't unlock.
Joe shows us how effective the process is.
I have quite a free range of where I can paint and reach over here to get water and paint, whereas with my mouth before, I would have to reach over here with the brush to get water and paint. And now, since the implant, I still am better with the fine detail with my mouth, but it allows me to paint all the backgrounds with my hand. I have a much better reach this way, and it's so much more comfortable. I had actually stopped painting almost because it was such a tedious and painful ordeal with my mouth.
Joe used to take up to 6 months or longer to complete a painting. Now, she only takes 3.
What my art, I think, has always allowed me to do, and one of the wonderful assets it gives to my life is that I use it to show people what the disabled can do. The implant has given me back a part of my life I didn't think I'd have. So what I do is look for every little edge I can out there, and almost all of that's through technology, to make my life more the way I want it to be and to allow me to do whatever I want to do.
I'm here on the campus of Duke University in North Carolina, which is the setting for our next handicapped protagonist, Mike Hammer. Mike Hammer's passion is music. He plays the harmonica and the zither, and just learned another instrument, the hammer dulcimer. Mike takes part in the program Instruments for the Deficient, sponsored by Duke University. Mike lost the use of his fingers after a diving accident.
I thought the water was about 4 feet deep, and I did a shallow dive, but it ended up the water was only about that deep. And I hit my head here, and then I was instantly paralyzed.
Abandoning his music never entered Mike's mind. He thought he could make use of his wrists.
First thing I thought in the hospital, I was just, I was still in intensive care, and I was thinking, now what am I going to play?
Mike told the program director that he wanted to play the bass guitar. This is when biomedical engineering students Lindsay Johnson and Corey Weiner intervened by modifying the instrument on which Mike would play. The keys translate the hammer beats into electronic signals which are transmitted to a processor. Lindsay demonstrates.
He would have a hammer that we don't have, but he would be holding it in between his fingers like this because he doesn't really have any finger movement. And he hits the keys. With the synthesizer, it sounds much better, much clearer, because the synthesizer itself has better sound production than this computer.
Mike was grateful and awed by Lindsay and Corey's work.
They were amazing. I mean, they conceived of it. They figured out the physics of how much pressure I use to get a sound, that I can use with my wrist. They made the instrument. They figured out the electronics. I was quite impressed.
Mike could never use the normal synthesizers with the bass sound. By utilizing these hammers, he can produce musical sounds with more freedom, precision, and speed.
This was one of my inventions. Took me a long time to figure it out, but after about a year I figured out how I could, because once again, it's just using the wrist motion. See, it's MIDI'd with the keyboard, so it can have almost any kind of sound. Actually, what I've found is it has a bass sound, but it has also a very good, like, marimba sound. And so percussion sounds very good with it.
Mike is also a composer and has been very productive lately.
I have a band that's about 10 people in the band. And so in that band, I'm the songwriter and the singer, and the band is kind of my instrument.
Mike has a CD ready for release. 3 individual cuts are already out in the market.
I feel lucky. I've actually been more productive in terms of recording output since my accident than I was before. If the sun don't shine this afternoon, tomorrow's another day.
Wow, what great stories about overcoming hardships. I mean, it really makes you feel like you can just go out there and conquer the world.
You know, Mike Hammer, at first I thought he was the detective. I got to tell you, though, he's got a great name for the kind of music he plays. And with the hammers he uses, he can really nail all those tunes. Get it?
I got it. But what do you make of that genetic databank for criminals?
No, I don't like the Big Brother is watching theory at all, no.
No, well, whether you believe in genetic codes or not, it is our job to inform the viewers. So with that in mind, we bid you farewell and until the next installment of Scope.
Thanks for watching.